India's market news headquarters. Cutting-edge analysis. Influential insights. Market-moving intelligence. Broadcasting live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios in Mumbai.
Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
the
office of President of the United States.
the office of President of the United States. From this moment on, America's decline is over. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. Today, I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. We will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. Well, Trump 2.0 is underway. Those visuals, those pictures, essentially President-elect Trump becoming President Trump, taking the oath, and of course, lots of executive orders have come through. There is a fair bit to unpack here and more over the next couple of days and weeks. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Surabhi and Nigel. Guys, hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning, folks. So watching that speech, I was just like, he was not smiling yesterday.
Yeah.
There was no banter. It was all very, very serious. I think he was on a mission to tell the world that he's going to deliver exactly what he promised.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of those announcements starting to come through yesterday immediately.
Well, Trump, he looked like, in his earlier day, he was the advisor to Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson should finish that boxing game in the first round. But gradually he started, easing out. So it appeared he's not going for that one shot, but we're going to see a lot of action in the next 12 rounds or so.
Absolutely. And I think, let's take it from the top then, right? Because it's all going to be Trump and what he has done, what he's said, what he is going to say, what he can say, etc., etc., etc. I just want to quickly put up GIFT Nifty to begin. Usually I look at the GIFT Nifty at the end, but just quickly look at where we are at. And then sort of move from there. It's absolutely flat. We've already seen some volatility. I think we were seeing a gap up, and now it's kind of absolutely flattened out. There you go. Now, so President Trump's second term is underway. He took oath as the 47th president of the U.S. last night. And of course, you saw those visuals, etc. The inauguration speech, and the graphics will come up, focused on key campaign promises and largely on expected lines. So first priorities immediately after that speech, around the same time, when he was taking that oath, the White House put out Trump's first priorities. A border is absolutely the first priority. But for us, from a market standpoint, trade was a big one, right? Tariffs were a big one. He was vague on trade and inflation, at least last evening when he made that inauguration speech. He said that he will overhaul trade systems, but there were no specifics on tariffs, which actually came through. And that is the reason why, the markets perhaps are a little relieved. I mean, the dollar, for example, was anyway during, it's starting at about 7 o'clock or so, there was that Wall Street Journal article which said that he'd stopped short of actually imposing tariffs on day one. And the dollar index was down 1. And that actually deepened a little bit. So no specifics on tariffs, at least not after in the inaugural speech. Just this quote will come up on your screen. So it's not as if he didn't say anything. He said, instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. Right? So, it means tariffs very much on his mind, and what shape and form, scale, scope, etc. I think the specifics is essentially what we're missing. But later, while he was signing those executive orders, and we'll play a soundbite to this regard, He essentially, in response to a question, said this: "We are thinking in terms of 25% tariffs towards Mexico and Canada. I think we'll do it on February 1st. So again, this is not altogether but disjointed, but he did say that, at least in terms of the 25% which he's spoken about with regards to Mexico and Canada. Dollar index was sharply lower, but I think it's bounced off a little bit from the lows. We're at about 108.43. Remember, we were at 109.30 or so, so we've come off quite a bit from those levels. But most of the move has happened after that Wall Street Journal article, and from that point on, we've not seen any sell-off really. I mean, if anything, we've come up a little bit, as you can see up on your screen. So we put out those 4 scenarios yesterday, and I was saying that the second and the third perhaps are the most likely scenarios. It looks like it's going to be second, which is gradual tariff increases, a moderate approach to tariffs, etc., etc. And a point we'd made earlier as well, peak Trump on the day of the inauguration, maybe the market, unwinds some of these fears and, the dollar goes down, etc. But that's not to say that he's not going to do what he said he will do. It may be more gradual. That's basically about it. The only thing is that if we don't see very much in terms of specifics in the next 1 week, I think we could see a more substantial dollar pullback, which is then going to be positive for emerging markets. So, it's 1 day and then, of course, 1 week or so. But I think the inside of the next week or so, we need to see specifics for dollar strength, yield strength, etc. so to sustain. Now, the other thing, of course, was oil prices. They also came off. Trump said that U.S. will, in his own sort of language, drill, baby, drill. They're going to sort of produce more oil, more gas, and they're going to export it around the world. There was also Russian President Putin, who emerged saying that he's willing to start a dialogue with the U.S. on the Ukraine crisis. Remember, Trump said that he'll end wars and he won't get into new wars. And I think this has been a big expectation, really. So these are largely 2 areas which markets are concerned about. One is tariffs, not very clear at this stage. The other is oil prices. And with regards to oil prices, I mean, I think it's very clear he wants the price of energy to be down. Okay, let's just circle back and tie in the levels here. Yesterday for the markets, we ended about 1% away for the Nifty and the Bank Nifty from their respective 20-day moving averages. We crossed the hourly averages. So the Nifty needs to cross 23,460, which is about 100 points away from where we left off yesterday. That is the first level. And then you're looking at a reach of the 20-day moving average, which stands at 23,578. It's all about 1% or so from where we closed yesterday. I mean, the lows of last week remain essentially the supports which we should not break. The Nifty Bank resistance comes in at between 49,885 to 49,939. And the 20-day then comes in at the 50,069 level for the Nifty Bank. So these are some levels. It's still not very clear how this is going to pan out. But I think it's all about the spectrum. Markets were very nervous that at least a portion of the market was nervous that he's going to go big on day one and impose universal tariffs, etc. That has not happened. So in that sense, I think this is unambiguously positive for risk assets. It's unambiguously negative for the dollar index. But since we are in the moment right now, I think this may take some time to pan out, unless and until, today evening, when I'm assuming he's asleep now after a full day of activities, he comes up with something new. So I think that's where we are at. But tentative kind of start is what the GIFT Nifty is indicating, 20 points higher. Surabhi.
Prashant, I just say that I think anyone who's going to extrapolate anything into any model could be running the risk of losing, millions of dollars in trade, because I don't see the Trump trade being a straight line anymore. From November up until now, it was a nice, clean sweep. It was build America again, make America great again. So it was easier to trade the Trump move. I don't think that straight line exists anymore. And today, if you see market reactions around the world, it's kind of indicating that when the speech was going on, U.S. futures were higher, then they turned flat. Now there's a bit of, upwards bid again because the dollar is cooled off. But, whether the dollar stays that way or not itself is a question. But I think the cleanest takeaway that we have after the speech yesterday, the clearest indication is that oil is going down. Why? Because of 2 reasons. Drill, baby, drill, obviously, and the fact that there is already this executive order in place, which is bringing forward a national emergency. And the second, that in general, the world is preparing for hopefully, a more conflict resolution and fewer wars and winding up of the existing wars, which should be, of course, taking off that geopolitical risk premium of oil prices. So that's one very clear takeaway that I had. The rest of it, well, you're muddling along. On tariffs, now he's saying 25% tariffs from the 1st of February on Mexico and on Canada. On China, he's not said anything, but who's to stop him from saying something a couple of hours later? There's already a threat that if China doesn't get a deal ready to sell off TikTok, then there could be tariffs on China. And he's been maintaining this 10 to 60% in terms of tariffs for many, many months. So let's see which way this goes. Let's see how the negotiations go. Speaking of negotiations, the wider ramifications, obviously, we all knew this in the run-up, watching the campaign, but as and when the executive orders come in, it becomes a reality. The US, for instance, pulling off from the Paris Climate Accord. That's also happened immediately, just hours after the inauguration speech got done. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. The Bitcoin markets were on the edge yesterday, while everyone knows that, Mr. Trump is very pro-cryptocurrency. There was no mention of it yesterday in the speech. So again, that took some money off the table. The Bitcoin, which was, I think, about at 109,000, moved to just a little below 102,000 yesterday. So there was a bit of a cool-off coming in over there. So short point is that trading anything straight line for multiple days might become a problem for traders till all of this settles, maybe a couple of weeks down the line. For us, the biggest takeaway, coming back to what this means for us, for me, as I said, the clearest takeaway is the fall in oil prices. And that seems to be a very clear sentiment positive, because we're now looking at Brent around 80. But even here, remember, there's a lot of conversation already and a lot of literature that's been written about this. The sanctions that were announced by the previous administration against Russia and Russian oil companies from which we are buying crude, how will that play out? This is really up in the air. But largely speaking, directionally, oil looks like, there's no move up. Coming back to our picture here, the market has been in a trading range. But the good news is that the bulls have managed to move to the upper end of the trading range at 23,350. Asian markets are mixed. They're a little all over the place, but there is more green than red, short point, across our neighborhood. And let's see if the Nifty bulls can build on that, given that we are at the top end of that trading range of about 23,350 yesterday. On the institutional flows picture, there's not much positive to report. Again, we had a big sell number, selling of about 4,336 crores yesterday. It was offset by domestic buying. So this hasn't stopped. No matter what Trump is doing, no matter what the dollar is doing, this is a constant, at least for now. Let's see when this changes. We have some interesting results in focus and some good ones at that. Dixon was a steady set of numbers. Oberoi Realty has done well, along with other real estate companies. There's MCX, which is kind of in the mix. It's muddling along, some good, some bad. We'll talk about these numbers as we go forward. And of course, we have to watch out for any follow-through reactions on Zomato. That was a big newsmaker at the end of trade yesterday. Today's results tally includes, again, some interesting names. There's ICICI Prudential, Seng DLM, there's Dalmia Bharat, KEI Industries, there's PNB Housing, Tata Tech. So plenty of mid-caps to keep us busy. Not too many large-cap names, but very interesting mid-caps that we'll be reporting today, and the result reactions that we will track today as well. But for the time being, at least this one event Nigel is out of the way. We've got the 47th US president. Now we pick it up and see, how he walks the talk from here.
Well, that's right. And the biggest positive overnight, as you all mentioned, is the dollar index cooling off. And that's going to be very, very important. So we'll have to see whether the FIs who have been net short, they hold on to those short positions, or in fact, they see a bit of a short covering bounce, which will be very, very good for our markets. The other factor that I'll be looking at is the cash market selling. They could continue to remain sellers, but with the cool-off that we're seeing in the dollar index, will this number come down a little bit? That's going to be important. So both those two data points is what I'm looking at. What did they do yesterday? No surprises. They added more shorts than longs, and now it's taken their short positions to extreme levels. That's what we have seen on June 4, 2024. And from there, the markets did bounce up. And I've been making this point for the last few days. Declined net long positions, well, it's almost at those levels. And the FI net short positions as well, almost at those levels. And, with the shorts in the system, actually, it's cushioning things, because you always have that in case things are not as bad as it appears so. And the markets have already corrected. The Nifty has corrected 10% from the top. Maybe there is a very high probability that we see a bit of a short covering bounce. Moving to the options data, then two strikes are very, very important. The 23,200 put, the bulls are putting in a bit of a fight, from around the 22,800 appears just in the near term. That's with the expiry around the corner. That maybe, in fact, they'll want to push that base up a little bit. On the upside, the 23,400, 23,500 odd level is going to be a bit of a resistance zone. So just to plug in the numbers, the important mark you're looking at for the Nifty, the 20 DMA, that's at around the 23,579. You'll require it to go about the 23,450, 23,500, and then make its way to around the 20 DMA. While the support comes in at around the 23,100 odd mark, going by the options data. The Nifty Bank as well, yesterday it bounced back in style, but it needs to rally close to around 1.5% from here to hit its 20 DMA, which is going to be the important mark On the downside, the recent low, that serves at a bit of a reference point. There are two stocks that I'm looking at for today's trading session. The sector of the day could probably be the metal index. Yesterday as well, we saw a rally. You have the dollar index that's cooled off. That's always music to the ears because base metal prices, they get a bit of a fillip from there. And Vedanta, because of his exposure to metals and because there's a special situation, I'll keep an eye out on that one. The other one I'm going to look at is Zomato. Yesterday, the last tick was around 230 rupees or thereabouts. It ended at around this 200 DMA. So very, very crucial factor. The shots have got piled into the system. It appears the longer term story is intact, but in the near term, there are some headwinds. So we'll have to see if the stock starts off in the red, whether it bounces from there on, because yesterday the number of shots that got accumulated in the system were very, very large. And, the average price was actually closer to around 240 rupees. The last tick was around 230 rupees. We'll keep an eye out on Zomato. Don't rule out it bouncing from the lows of the day.
Thanks very much, Nigel, for that. Keep an eye out on those names.